Okay, for those in my 98365 MTA server class, these are the things we're going to cover this week. Understanding server installation options, understanding server roles, including identifying some server types, some application servers, and then understanding web services. So if you're not in my one of these classes, you just stumbled upon this on YouTube, that's what we're doing here. We're going through an MTA class for 98365. So we're going to begin right now with this little bit right here. Well, let's try to do that again. This little bit right here, talking about server core versus desktop experience in Windows Server 2019. And I believe that this test also still covers Server 2016 as well. So let's talk a little bit about this. Server 2016 and 2019 really has three types of servers, or I should say three editions: Server Essentials, Server Standard, and Server Data Center. Server Essentials would be what you would want to install if you're going to be a one-horse town. You're going to be a small company that has probably one server, and that's going to be a domain controller, maybe 2 or 3 domain controllers, and maybe a file and print server. But once you get beyond that, you're probably going to want to have Server Standard. Server Standard, you might have several domain controllers and then several additional servers. When you have other servers that are non-domain controllers, you call those member servers, by the way. And then if you get really big and you have lots of domain controllers and they're scattered around different sites, as we say, those are different geographical areas. You might have cloud servers, virtual servers, big data centers. Those would be data center servers. Now, these are huge things that you wouldn't just go out and buy off the shelf. You would have some supplier supply the entire infrastructure for you, Dell or HP or Microsoft, or some big engineering firm that would put these together for you. Those would be the ones that would put together these big data center servers for you. So let's begin to talk then about what these servers look like. Now, once you set up a server, and this one would be, they would all look the same at the beginning. This would be the first screen that would come up once I install a server. And this is called the Server Manager. Well, it looks a little different from what Windows, a client version of Windows looks like, or a home version of Windows, or so you think. But once you click this little X up here, you actually have what looks like, Windows, right? It looks just like what you would see under the hood in Windows. You've got the taskbar down here, and here's the start button, and it really doesn't look any different from Windows 10. And in fact, under the hood, this is Windows 10. However, a server is just a big blank slate, tabula rasa, if you will, a blank slate. And in fact, if you go back to this view again, see this add roles and features here? If I click that add roles and features and follow the screens, eventually I get to this screen where I have to click and tell it, well, what kind of server is this? If this is going to be a domain controller, in other words, sort of the basic type of server, this is the first server that you would create on your domain, the first server in your organization. You would add Active Directory domain services, and your first server, you would check this box right here and create a domain controller. And that has to be your first server in a Microsoft domain. And so that's how you would begin this whole process, by creating one of these guys and making, this is one that keeps track of your users and your computers and groups and things like that. So this is a big blank slate until I tell it what I want it to be. It's kind of like a stem cell, right? It doesn't know if it's going to be a part of a liver or part of a canal of Schlemm in an eye until you tell it what it's going to be. And so this is how you get to that, to tell it what it is, through this server manager that likes to pop up every time you start this server up. During installation, This looks just like a Windows 10 installation, but there are two types of this. There is a desktop experience and a server core, and they both look like this when they're first installing. However, once I've done the install, you've already seen what it looks like. If it's desktop experience, it looks like this. But if it's server core, it looks like this. This is the first thing I get. I have to change a password, and once I change that password, this is what I get. There is no graphical user experience there, and there's no GUI or graphical user interface. Everything is just command line, and if I want to run this thing, I would typically run PowerShell. Now this thing, it does have some graphical capability. For example, if I type in here MSInfo32, I can get to this sort of graphical screen, but I don't have a point and click icons and mice and so on that I can click on to get around. Everything is done through this command line back here. Now, why would I want that? Well, I would want a graphical user experience back here if I'm just in a small organization, say, where I've got a one-man operation and one server, maybe a domain controller, maybe a couple of domain controllers. But as I start to grow in my organization, this gets unwieldy. Let's say that I need to go to 10 different servers to make a change. I don't want to go to 10 different servers and make the change. I would rather do it all through a command line and make the change on all of them at once. Now let's say I have 100 servers in my organization, or 1,000 servers, or I have a warehouse with 10,000 servers. I want to be able to use PowerShell and make a change on all 10,000 of those servers all at once. If I had the GUI, if I were using this graphical user interface experience, I would have to go to all 10,000 of those servers one at a time, log into them, go click, 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 and make whatever change I want to make. And then, no, see, that's stupid. That would make no sense whatsoever. And besides that, without all of this graphic stuff having to render, these server core servers are hundreds of times faster. And they are less prone to error, less prone to crashes, less prone to security issues, because there are a lot less ways for hackers to get to them and into them. And so they are much, much more secure. So they're very good for remote locations. And so it turns out that these server core servers are not only safer, but way faster. They use far less resources. So when it comes to computing and doing things, they are extremely fast compared to these graphical ones. So you can see that they have a great advantage over the graphical user servers.